Hello, friends. Steve. Steve with the dirty glasses. They're not dirty glasses, they just aren't probably as clean as I would like them to be when I'm an influencer on YouTube. Whoever knew that I was going to be an influencer on YouTube? And I have noticed that there are times where there's just like large numbers of people that are all of a sudden subscribers or followers. I don't normally mention it because what I really like is a small group of people that interact with each other through the comment section. Oh, that was a really good comment. Oh, that really helped me. And there's all this healing going on between the people that are actually watching the video. And even though the video may sometimes say 600 people watch this video, the reality is that somehow this video appeared and 600 people clicked on it and then may have watched a minute or two and said, boy, this guy doesn't go anywhere. He takes a lot of time to say nothing. And my wife would agree with them. She's a lovely human being, and she'll say, well, get to the point. Like there is a point in buttoning your sleeve buttons. And then I was on a phone call this morning with a good friend of mine of many years, who I would say is ACDC as well, or AH. What is that term? Hyperactivity disorder. I definitely have skipped my memory mushrooms for a few days. I need to get back on the memory mushroom ship. I need to remember to take my memory mushrooms. I keep forgetting. I don't know why. Okay, so I've received a number of people who actually have my cell phone number and have been texting me congratulations on making it through the 28 years of cleansing and the 5 years of grounding the disturbance of the world healing field. That's been a challenge. Noticing it was just a little bit of tightness in the neck muscle and through here. 5 years of daily grind, grounding the disturbance coming off of people into the world and grounding that disturbance for 5 years. Looking back, I think like that was a long time. While it was happening, it was just day after day. And sometimes I'd complain about it. And sometimes I'd do that verbally. And sometimes back when I had a Facebook account, before they decided that I was saying things that they didn't agree with, which I was from the beginning, saying things that they wouldn't agree with. But when it became a nonprofit for them, then they had to eliminate me. So, but here I am, still a nonprofit. If I were a profit, I'd be the profit margin. But I have lots of new friends now. I have friends all over the world that from time to time tune in, and I have a lot of new acquaintances from Ireland because we're all taking the same course, which is the Ancestral Healing Code course with Thomas Hubel, and it's about learning how to really work with consciously and carefully the um, the traumas that are in our lineage and also in our nerve systems. So when we get triggered by somebody says something, we go, "What the hell?" And the person goes, "What the hell? What the hell? I mean, why are you reacting? I just said this." You go, "Well, why did you say that?" And they go, "Well, what did it mean to you that I said that? Because you seem to be the one upset by it. And all I said was, 'How are you today?'" "Yeah, but you said it in such a way." It's like that whole thing where I would say that I could have been the poster child for PTSD. But the problem was, when I was a child, they didn't recognize PTSD, and maybe because only a few of us had it. And so we were just the ones that were um, called different, or those who were referred to as ones that had a lot of energy or very creative. But now we get to see ourselves as survivors who would rather be thrivers. And maybe we even were thrivers while we were survivors. But now we feel like, okay, we came in, we had this really traumatic beginning, which led us into becoming healers. We've done a lot of healing work with people, and we've come to, some of us may have come to this other side, even though we're still distracted. So I'm going to see if I can get back to come to this other side, but I need to point out that painting, which is a watercolor that was done by a now famous artist named Ray Jacobson. And Ray Jacobson was a Sonoma County artist. He lived down the hill on the mountain I lived on. And this mountain was straight up the hill from a town called Glen Ellen off of Cadedale Road. And I lived there from 1970 to 72. But it's interesting because I'm looking at, this is here, this here and here is a pond. And then these are trees in the background with the sunlight shining on them. And this was the road that went up to the, where we had our houses up out of the picture. And this was a lake, a large pond. It wasn't really a lake, large pond that was spring fed that we could swim in. And then this is a reflection onto the painting of the trees outside of my house. And I was just noticing how they just blended so well together, and it created this other kind of worldly picture. It's a nice piece of art by reflection, reflected art on art, art reflecting art, or nature reflecting on art. So nature's outside saying, hey, it's like looking in the mirror. Look at all those pine trees and look at the mountains in the background. And you look out the window, there's all these pine trees and mountains in the background and water, just like there was water there. So I think I can go back to the story I was telling, which is about having so many Irish people in my ancestral healing code group and beginning to understand the trauma that my Irish ancestors went through when their Ireland is somewhat of a small island. It just takes a few hours to drive across. North to south, I don't know how many hours it would take, but it's not too many. But in, I think it was 1840, the majority of inlanders, so there was the coasters and the inlanders, and the majority of inlanders' main diet was potatoes. And they, if they had an acre of land, they could feed their family potatoes. But not much else was grown in 1840 because potatoes could grow on poor soil. So they, who knows if they were nutritious, but they might have been nutritious. And they could grow on poor soil, and people could live on potatoes. And I can understand because I'm genetically Irish and I'm still somewhat living on potatoes. But there was a potato blight, and it wiped out the potato crops of the country. And at the time, there were 9 million people in what's now Northern Ireland and Irish Republic, I think Republic of Ireland, and then Northern Ireland. And Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, UK. And it's like United States. I would call it the DUS, the Disunited States, because what is the unity of this country? And I'm not going to spell it out because it would just be my perception. But what I have felt is the disunity of this country. And so possibly now we're going to come into a place of unification over time. And who knows how long that's going to take. So 28 years ago, on the 23rd of March of 1997, I participated in a process. It was explained to me later that I was trained for about 15 months in how to work with energy. And then I was telepathically told by my guides that I would be led to a hillside where there was a vortex, and that I was to be there. And I probably had a couple months that I was told that I was going to be there on the night of March 22nd, 23rd for an event that was going to be taking place, and all I needed to do was show up and the rest would be revealed to me. And so what turned out to be happening was this being was coming from another planetary system, that the being had just helped through this kind of conscious evolution and had been invited to this planetary system by kind of the overseer of this planetary system, who I understand goes by Sanat Kumara. So Sanat Kumara is kind of an overseer, and I guess Sanat Kumara asked this being Abrahamanad if this being could come into this realm and assist this evolutionary process on this planet. And so I don't know how they communicate all this stuff, Maybe on that other realm they can communicate anywhere within the system. Maybe they have, you know, internet on another level, internet between all the different places, and they hear of good things that Abrahamanad was doing on this planet. And then Abrahamanad was invited here. I don't know how it works on that level. It would just be imagination, and I've got pretty hefty imagination, so I could imagine just about anything. But Abrahamanad came in as the new soul of the earth. So there was, we hear about these things like the yin and yang symbol, where one side is the masculine and one side is the feminine, and within the feminine is a dot of masculine, within the masculine is a dot of feminine, and that these have to do with the cycles, cosmic cycles, and this one cosmic cycle is the movement of our sun around the central sun, which is referred to as Hunab Ku in the Mayan language, which means the one. And so the one consciousness that is the consciousness of this solar system is related to this Hunab Ku, which is the central sun, and the consciousness of the world comes out of the central sun. The central sun is also referred to as the one consciousness. I'm not trying to get you to believe something here. I'm just telling you a story. What you want to believe is up to you, and what I want to believe is up to me. And maybe we're better off not having any beliefs. Maybe we're better off just having some really good stories. And so now I feel like I can produce this really good story about how I was contacted telepathically by these spirit guides who told me that I need to do this thing for 15 months because I was one of four pillars of light. Now, if you're kind of into spirituality, you might think, oh, one of four pillars of light. So you might have some pretty good spiritual ego feelings about being like, oh, I'm just one of four pillars of light who have been chosen, who have been selected, and who have probably volunteered to assist the new soul of the earth to incarnate. Now, when I say that, 28 years later, I think, holy crap, how did they pick me? And literally, I got into therapy in 1970. I'm thinking right around 1970. I got into group therapy with the other hippies that I was living with on the startup communal vineyard. It was the 70s. Could have been growing anything. But I was 19 years old, and I was already aware of how I needed help. And how crazy the world seemed to me, and how I wanted to live in a world that seemed a little less crazy. And so I began getting into spiritual practices and meditation and, shifting consciousness and yoga, and then that just never ended. When the first thing I did when I moved from Southern California, I was back in Southern California before I left, and I moved from there to Davenport, Iowa to go to chiropractic college. And one of the very first things I did was seek out a spiritual teacher, and I found a really wonderful one who was like middle-aged, I would say overweight woman who wore fluffy pink slippers as she helped people transform their consciousness. I can't even remember her name. Maybe it'll come to me, but she was wonderful. And she was just so down to earth, and could also see, your past lives and stuff. I mean, she was like some woman that could have just been sitting home watching soap operas, but she wasn't. She was out changing the world through her consciousness and awareness. Anyway, she was a good teacher for that year or so, my first year there. But I was told by my spirit guides that, and the main spokesperson was Arlen, who's still around. So this was 29 years ago that Arlen began telepathically talking to me, which kind of bothered me because I didn't want to be one of those people that heard voices, even though I'd heard voices my whole life. But this seemed different in that I was more conscious and hearing these voices. And the voices were always good. Voices were always telling me how to get through situations and what I need to do about this and how to maybe back off a little bit here and how to protect myself, in situations. How to not be quite so mouthy, not so cocky, because there were people that were my age, but a lot larger than me, who had a lot of anger stored. And I managed to trigger off a few of them, and a few of them managed to trigger me off, but still, I was not a person with a lot of self-esteem. I was a person that felt like there was something wrong with the world, and I was a person that felt like, or there was something wrong with me, but me and the world don't fit. And I don't know that I want to be here unless the world changes. And so I gave myself good experiences, good traumatic experiences, to kind of force me into awakening that I wanted a different life than I had. And I began seeking it out. And I found it at the age of 19. I found what I'd been looking for in the mountains. In the mountains. We are near the top of this mountain. So this is a mountain. We were at 2,400 foot elevation, and the mountain went up to about 2,600 foot elevation. And then you can see another peak of the mountain, probably at 2,600 foot elevation, right in there. And so we were just a couple hundred feet below that in this area that we lived. But it turned out that you didn't know at first that it was a spiritual community, because it was just a people practicing a particular type of meditation that was taught by the same guru, whose name was Kirpal Singh. And I don't really, anyway, he was useful, and I ended up getting to meet him and be initiated by him. And I still have friends who are still followers of Kirpal Singh. But it was a good awakening to me of what could happen through meditation and through opening up on an energetic level. And within this ancestral healing course, we had a gathering of people with Irish ancestry. And we had a gathering just a few days ago. It was Saturday. And it was so healing for me in this way. These were people who really spoke clearly and eloquently, with wisdom, about their trauma. So these people were honest about what they had been through, and I could just relate to every one of them. We have one more gathering, but I think there'll be further gatherings in the future. But we have one more gathering, and I'm very much looking forward to it. But from there, from my couple of years in, in the mountain above Glen Ellen in Sonoma County, after 2 years up there, I went back to the Los Angeles area to become a hair cutter because my plan was to go to chiropractic college, and my dad suggested that I learn a trade. And I think he was thinking plumbing, electric, something like that, carpentry. And I was thinking carpentry, but I ended up studying hair cutting, and out of school. So school was about 9 months of training to be a hair cutter, and then taking some tests, and then just a bit out of school, I found a salon in Beverly Hills, California, because I figured if you wanted to get good training, it would be in like Hollywood, Beverly Hills. That was probably the center of the movie industry and people who were creative with hair. And so I did find I didn't know at the time when I got hired that he was the 1972 world champion of haircutting. So there's actually a haircutting Olympics, and Shoichi Mogi, his team had won the gold medal, and I think he personally maybe had won the silver, the bronze out of all the haircutters in the world. His team won the gold medal, and he individually, I think, won the bronze medal overall. So anyway, he was a high-level haircutter and had a salon he had opened up in Beverly Hills. So I worked with him for a year, and he told me right away, he said, you're going to learn in 1 year here what it would take you 10 years to learn in the world, just out as a haircutter. And it was true. I went from being, the best haircutter in my barber school, haircutting school, to being one of the best haircutters in Los Angeles. And I ended up taking a job in Pasadena with an exclusive salon, a really cool but really good haircutter salon called The Gallery. And I ended up getting hired as a hairstylist and as the trainer for men's haircutting. And then after I had trained, I think there was a total of 8 haircutters. After I had been training the other 7 haircutters, after a year out of styling school, I was training all these haircutters, what I'd learned from Shoichi Mogi. So after just a few months of working there and training the other haircutters, they made me the trainer of all the haircutters, including the owner of the salon, because I knew so many things that they didn't know how to do, and so I was teaching them how to do it. So I had a really good time there. I was there for a few years, and then I did what I wanted to do, which I went off to chiropractic college, and I was in chiropractic college for about 3.5 years, and I really found the things that really affected me the most powerfully, and then I learned how to do them, and then that was the start. And then I just continued on and on and on, learning more and more processes that would support people to change more and more gently and more rapidly. That was the way, gentle and easy was the way I felt healing should be, even though Arlen pointed out to me just recently that I had the belief that in order to heal, you had to suffer. And so I think I've let go of most of that belief. Okay. So I think maybe this will be an ongoing discussion. This may get published. This may just be my own ramblings. But, or maybe I'll see how much time I've spent on this. So 30 minutes already. Let's go just a little bit longer. So I got a year of training from Arlen and his group on how to prepare myself to help bring in this new soul of the earth, Abrahamanad. And Abrahamanad incarnated early in the morning on March 23rd of 1997 and downloaded information into my consciousness about how there was going to be a 28-year period of cleansing, and that period was going to separate the two cycles. So there's a 26,000-year cycle around the central sun. So there's a 13,000-year cycle, and then another 13,000-year cycle. So there's kind of like half cycles to get that whole 26,000-year cycle. There's 13,000 on one side, 13,000 on the other side, and one side has a female soul of the earth and the male soul of the earth. The female is soul of the earth, and the male is the energy around the earth, and then it switches to a male soul of the earth and a female energy around the earth. So that's what Abrahamanad has come to be, is the soul of the earth. Kuan Yin is the feminine consciousness around the earth. Lovely, lovely being. I've worked with her in all of my healing sessions since about 2013 or so. So about 12 years. Yeah, the goddess of compassion and goddess of sound healing. But anyway, that's two of the beings that are acting as the container for this earth that we're in. And we've been through a 28-year cycle of cleansing. We went through 7 years of physical cleansing, 97 to 2004. 7 years from 2004 to 2011, it was mental cleansing. 2011 to 2018 was emotional cleansing. 2018 to 2025, spiritual cleansing. So the completion date of that cleansing was the 24th, which was yesterday. And that was the ending of the 28-year cycle of cleansing and the beginning of the new cycle. Because all of these cycles within the Mayan tradition typically start with a yellow sun, because that's Hunab Ku, who is the God figure or the God, one consciousness. I don't know that they had a term God, that might come later, but was the one consciousness to which all consciousness was connected. So we've been through a 28-year process of cleansing physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And people say, okay, what do we have to expect now? Because this is the first full day of the next 13,000-year cycle. Yesterday was a half day. And that was just to get used to it. But this is now the first day of the next 13,000 years of feminine presence surrounding the planet. So the feminine presence, the feminine energy shifts things. Things are different with that consciousness, and things will be different. And people have been writing me and asking me, how will it be different? And I said, I've never done this before that I know of. I mean, maybe, but I don't have a memory of ever participating in anything like this. I have memories of coming here and doing things in different time periods. I have lots of memories from Atlantis. I have memories from Egypt, some really cool things that took place in Egypt. I have memories of Mayan lifetimes. I have memories of more recent lifetimes. I have memories of lifetimes, but I've never, as far as I know, participated in the total transformation of the consciousness of a planet in 28 years. Um, and so I don't know what to expect. I don't know how I'll be. I don't know how you'll be. I don't know how it will be. I just know that part of this process is consciousness reforming as one. So that's one thing that I do understand, is that we're coming into a state of awareness that we are one consciousness with many forms. Here's one of the consciousnesses right there. That's the Jules consciousness. And Jules has not been well for a few days only. So, but she's better now. But she was not doing well for a few days, and she's my my wife's cat. So we have 3 cats here. My stepdaughter lives here part of the year, and so she has a cat. That's a black and white cat. It has a white tail with a little black tip, I think. And you've seen that tail go by, and you've seen my cats. This is a gray, a dark and a lighter gray stripy cat named Bryn, and you've seen her tail go by. And I don't know if you've seen Jules' tail go by, but anyway, we have 3 cats. My cat, my wife's cat, my stepdaughter's cat are all here and participating in the energy work that we do here. The 2 of us when we're just the only ones here, the 3 of us when there's 3 of us here. I think that's enough, a little bit of history of, and a little bit of a better understanding of what's going on. Not that any of us really know yet, maybe some do, what's going on a larger cosmic level, but we just know what we're doing currently, and just doing our best, just working the best of our ability. And that's all we're going to keep doing. The world feels different to me. It does. It felt different to me on Sunday. I slept better Friday night than I had in quite some time. I slept better Saturday night. I slept better Sunday night as well. So the past, there was, some good nights of sleep, which mainly I've been working at night in the dream world. I've just been processing, grounding, disturbed energy of the planet. It's not for the weak of heart or whatever they might say, but I've been doing it for at least 5 years, working with the world field. And I've been working with helping individuals process the release of stuck energy and stuff coming out. I've been helping them ground that for, really 45 years, something like that, and even before then. So I've got lots of time doing the work, but grounding the world energy was a big step up for me. I found it very difficult, found it very challenging, and I feel like it needed to be done through the 28 years, but in a real focused way in the last 5 years. It's been real focused. And now I'm going to wait and see what information comes in, if there's a next step. But meanwhile, I'll keep making these videos, and some of them will be posted. Maybe this one will be posted. We'll just see. All right. So it's been a pleasure talking about these things with you today, and I hope the sound is good, and I hope that you enjoy this 40 minutes of download. Okay, I'm Steve, and I'm moving on to the next thing.